Konami recently shared a first in-engine look of Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, where we got to see pre-alpha footage of various aspects of the game, such as the environments, wildlife, and character models. I initially planned to do a live reaction, but I decided to watch the footage and give myself some time to digest it before commenting. My overall reaction to the footage is pretty positive. There's always something special about seeing a classic game you love remade in a modern gaming engine. Getting to see familiar areas or characters brought to life with higher graphical fidelity somehow triggers a feeling of nostalgia, almost like it's how you always remembered the game looking in your head. My favourite part of the footage has to be the lighting. I love the way that the jungle covers the environments in shadow, with only some rays of sunlight shining through the small breaks in the trees. I think it will really add something to the stealthy element of the game, as you sneak through the shadows past guards. I'm curious to see if shadows will have an impact on the camouflage meter, or just general visibility of Snake to the guards, a bit like the early Splinter Cell games with their light meter. I think it would really add another level of sophistication to the stealth gameplay if they work this in. Another standout from the footage for me are the environments. They just look so photorealistic and a real jump forward from the original game. As I said earlier, it just feels incredible to see these familiar locations recreated in Unreal Engine 5. But also highlights the incredible level design of the original game. I love the small details like how the lily pads bob on top of the water, how the grass and foliage gently sways in the wind, or how the wet mud sticks to Snake's clothing. I'll be interested to see if there are more muddy areas in the game aside from the initial swamp area. Again, it would be great if this affects the camouflage meter, like being able to immerse yourself in wet mud, similarly to what I've seen in some of the Ghost Recon games. One of the biggest parts of the original game was hunting animals for food, so I'm really glad to see the level of attention added to the wildlife in this footage. It looks like the team have really paid attention to the little mannerisms of each animal and worked these into their animations. I'm interested to see what they do with the hunting side of the game. Will these animals just turn into food packs like in the original game, or will there be a more sophisticated animation to picking up the animals you've hunted? I'm also really happy with what I've seen from the gameplay so far. We can finally be rest assured that crouch walking has been added to the game, which has always been an aspect that feels sorely missed when playing the original game. It sounds like such a small thing, but it really just adds to the game when you can crouch walk, rather than just crawling everywhere. I also like how smooth the animation looks for hugging up against walls and trees. I'll be interested to see if this requires a button prompt, or just simply pushing up against the surface to hug it. One aspect of the footage that I'm slightly divided on so far is the character model of Snake. From certain angles, namely the back and the side, he looks great, but there's something about his hair and face that's slightly off to me so far. I feel like there's just a tad too much hair covering Snake's forehead at the moment. In the original, there was a more defined split in the hair, whereas the new model looks like Snake is going through his emo phase in my opinion. It may just be the angles and lighting which aren't doing it any favours in this footage, but if anything, it won't be long before he's wearing the classic bandana anyway, which we get a sneaky shot of in this footage. I'm probably being way too over-analytical here, but it's just something that stood out to me. Another area of slight concern I have with the footage is that while it's great to see areas from the original recreated in Unreal Engine 5, I can't help but feel that everything just looks a little too familiar. I know for many fans of the original, this will be exactly what they want, and I get it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But when it comes to remakes, I do like it when developers expand on the level design slightly. Not to the point where it completely changes the level design, but perhaps a new little area here and there, a bit like how the Resident Evil 4 remake handled it. But perhaps this will be the case. The team might just be showing us familiar areas so far as a way to get us on board with this remake. Maybe we'll see newer stuff a bit further down the line, but if the game is a literal one-for-one remake, then that won't necessarily be a bad thing, but we'll certainly be playing it safe. I just can't help but feel that it would be a missed opportunity not to add some new areas to the level design, to bring something new to this remake. One big criticism I've seen of the footage so far is that it looks too much like one of those classic games recreated in new engine demos that you'll see every now and then from a hardcore fan of, say, Ocarina of Time. And while I do understand this criticism to a certain degree, I can't help but feel that it's bordering on being nitpicky and overlooks the effort put into this remake. I've seen many of those Unreal Engine recreations before, and I think this footage is way above the level of quality seen in those. I get that MGS games have always had a certain look, which makes them stand out from other games, but I can't deny that this footage so far looks great. But those are just my thoughts on the Metal Gear Solid Delta footage so far. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Are there any areas that you like the look of so far, or any areas of concern for you? Thanks for watching, and see you next time.